My name is Ronak Vod. I'm the Chancellor of Telra Institute, and tonight's presentation is intended for parents and guardians of current 8th graders at Scholars. If someone has younger children, you're welcome to join and listen in. This might be something you're interested in for the future, but we are really looking at high school transition for 8th graders. So there's a double entendre behind the title of the talk. So your children are at the cusp of high school, and at the same time, Telra is on the cusp of moving into our new high school building. We'll talk about that. I'll show you some photos in just a few minutes. Now, at this time of year, every middle school in Charlotte is doing some kind of high school transition presentation. They'll tell you how it's an exciting and nerve-wracking time. They'll give you a form probably to select some options for 9th grade courses, and they'll tell you how to use these years to prepare for college applications. Now, in general, you could type high school transition presentation into ChatGPT and get a pretty good idea of what you're going to hear. This is not that kind of talk, and I have a particular point of view on this world, which I'll share. But just a quick outline of this talk, we'll cover some basics about the school. We'll talk about what I like to call a strange game. Then we'll talk about college prep, and finally we'll hit the typical 9th grade courses, what you could look forward to if you were to join Telra Institute for 9th grade. All right, so we'll get started with some basics. So Telra Institute is a charter school just like Scholars Academy. The State Board of Education awarded our charter in 2020. We first began serving students in some leased classrooms in 2021. In 22, we completed construction and moved into our K-8 building on McKee Road. The school there is still K-8, and August 17th next year is the first day of school there. And then this year, our 9th and 10th grade began the year in some leased space at Central Piedmont Community College on their Levine campus. And next semester, they're moving into our new high school building on Campus Ridge Road. And if you were to join us next fall in 9th grade, it would be at our high school campus in Matthews. So let's talk about that high school building. It's situated in a park-like setting. We have two buildings, one for classrooms and a separate full-size gymnasium. And you can see here some recent photos. You've got kind of a view of the entry to our school. You've got, this is the picture on the top right is the entry to the gymnasium. The bottom left is kind of the front yard of our school. So, a lot of mature trees and some grassy fields. And then in the bottom right, you see the two buildings side by side. We're about a month away from being able to start moving in. Paint, tiles, and flooring are being installed as we speak. And it's well appointed, but it's not large for a high school. We anticipate around 50 to 75 students per grade when we get to capacity, so similar to what you have at Scholars. And the reason that we're able to make such a relatively small school is this. Central Piedmont Community College's Levine campus is 7 minutes away by foot. I actually timed myself walking door to door, or 2 minutes in our electric bus. And that's the picture of me in the bottom left, standing in front of our new electric bus we got last year. So students will be moving back and forth readily between the Telra campus and the CPCC campus by foot, by shuttle bus, or by bicycle. It will feel connected. So let me tell you a little bit more about that college campus. The CPCC Levine campus has over 375,000 square feet, 125 classrooms, 4 biology labs, 4 chemistry labs, art studios, dance and aerobic rooms, performing arts facilities, computer labs, libraries, dining centers, bookstores, a fitness center. And that's not even to mention some unique programs like automotive technology labs, medical simulation facilities, a new engineering program, and more. So these are facilities that a small charter high school couldn't hope to replicate. Even some 3,000 student high schools can't replicate it. But by strategically selecting our location and designing our program, we have access to all of that. There are some unique factors for 8th graders at Scholars who are considering Telra. First, you should know that you'll have priority access for admission to Telra. You already won the lottery once in getting to Scholars, so you don't need to win again to get into Telra. The Scholars Academy leadership and Telra's leadership a few years ago worked together to develop and execute a partnership that moves you to the top of our lottery list so that you don't need to worry too much about being granted admission. However, you do need to apply, and it only takes a few minutes to fill out a lottery application. And if you end up liking what you hear today, I'll ask you to visit and fill out that application right away. The reason we'd like you to apply right away is that our next placement testing session is on January 5th, right after the break. Now, because our curriculum is different than most North Carolina schools, we need you to take a placement test to determine the best instructional groups for you. For example, our math curriculum uses art of problem solving. You might be familiar with this curriculum. It's developed by people who spend a lot of time doing math competitions, and it's an extremely rigorous middle to high school level math curriculum, and it follows a more traditional math sequence of algebra, geometry, algebra 2, trigonometry, etc. And so it doesn't line up exactly right with Math 1, 2, 3 or Honors Math 1, 2, 3. So we do have to give folks placement tests to see what they're ready for. Another reason we have to do placement testing is because there are some additional tests required to qualify for dual enrollment and Central Piedmont, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So January 5th is that first placement testing session, and there will be more in the future, later in the winter and spring, but the sooner we get you tested, the better chances are that we can optimize your college schedule because those courses start to fill up. Now, with the basics out of the way, let's get back to talking about this big transition. You're probably wondering where the years went and realizing college is just on the horizon. You might be asking how to best position your child for success, but you also want to cherish the time you have with them. You have so many hopes. You want to see them continue growing academically to fulfill their potential. You want to expose them to a wider world, develop independence, find their passions, find their people. But you might also be worried about them getting lost in a giant student body, especially if you're coming from a small school like Scholars. Or maybe you're worried about them falling prey to some of the distractions that can afflict teenagers, or just getting burnt out. Now that much is true for just about every parent whose child is on the cusp of high school. But there's another layer for parents and students who might be, let's say, particularly ambitious or high achieving or driven. And I know that descriptor likely applies to a good majority of students and parents at Scholars. And this is the point where this high school transition talk becomes very different from the presentations you'll hear elsewhere. I hope I don't offend anyone, but I want to directly address the anxieties that I hear talking to dozens of parents who come to me and ask about their child's trajectory in middle school or high school. So to do that, I'm not only going to speak to the questions that I hear, but I'll also provide the conventional wisdom answers, which doesn't mean I agree with them, but it's good for you to know that. Now, for this group of families, the biggest question, whether implicit or explicit, is what do we need to do in high school to get my child into an elite university? So let's put that question right on the table and speak frankly about it. High school has become a game, with the prize being admission to an elite college. It's not like it was 20 or 30 years ago when we parents applied to a college. It's become serious, and parents are laser focused on helping their children win, looking for any advantage, any strategy, any investment, whatever it takes to win the game. We all kind of know how you score points in this game, right? You have to make sure you ace those SATs or ACTs. You want to get good grades, straight A's if possible, but that's probably not enough. You want to maximize your GPA so you come out at the top of the class rank. So that means loading up on honors, or better yet, AP and IB classes that carry those extra GPA points. Speaking of those AP classes, the most selective schools want 8 to 12 of them. So if you're trying to stand out, it means you're maximizing APs each year. And since most high schools only let you take 1 to 2 APs in 9th grade, you're looking at taking 3 to 4 each year thereafter. Yes, they're known for tons of busy work, and everything comes down to your grade on a single high-stakes AP exam at the end of the course. But that's what everyone else is doing. It's the game. Of course, also, academic excellence is not all you need. You need to excel in some sports and extracurriculars. So first chair violin, captain of the tennis team, student body president. Or maybe you've heard that the Ivy League is always looking to recruit players of some obscure New England prep school sports. That would explain the sudden interest in squash, crew, and fencing. Okay, so now you have that well-rounded profile that colleges want, right? Oh, not quite. You also need to show your social consciousness. So in the olden days, you might volunteer for 30 hours at a soup kitchen, But nowadays, inflation has taken hold. That's not enough. You may have to start your own nonprofit or go on a service mission to an impoverished nation, found a tutoring program, things that ironically take a lot of parental resources and guidance to support. Now, I don't mean to denigrate any of these activities. Individually, any of them might be fun, important, worthwhile, and perfectly well aligned to your child's interests. But the problem is, because of this game, many kids are not doing these things because they're pursuing a passion, or because they're learning something, or having fun, or developing a skill that will be genuinely useful to them later in life. They're doing these things to make themselves look good to an anonymous admission officer somewhere. They're playing a game. So you've played the game, you put your points on the board. Now what? Now you're rolling the dice. You start filling out applications, and if you're focused on only a few elite colleges, you're rolling those dice. At some of these schools, no matter how fantastic your high school resume is, no matter how many points you've racked up, your chances are low. I'm sure you've heard the stories about students with 1,500 SATs, a dozen fives in their APs, who still don't get into the colleges they want. I read a statistic recently that 69% of perfect SAT scorers were rejected by Stanford. So who can say what kind of profile those admissions officers are looking for to constitute their student bodies? We're all guessing how they define and evaluate merit. And this is where the expensive college application consultants come in, a class of people whose job it is to divine what's in the head of those college admissions teams. So all those years of hard work boil down to your one chance to impress these gatekeepers, and that's part of the game too. Well, let's suppose you win that game, right? What's the prize? It's grueling, it's stressful, it's risky, but the prize has got to be worth it. Well, that's not so clear cut. The one thing we know is that, for sure, is that these elite colleges are expensive, and that students often emerge after 4 years with $200,000 or $300,000 of debt. Of course, by the time your kids are in college, that number may go up. If we want to know if that investment has a good ROI, we have to ask, what is the value of an elite college experience? Is it the education? Well, studies have shown that teaching practices at elite private colleges aren't any better than their public counterparts. And moreover, today you have things like MIT, OpenCourseWare, edX, or a million AI programs, or YouTube, where you can learn almost anything you want at a moment's notice. A motivated and focused person can learn for free anywhere in the world on their own. And it's fair to say that with very few exceptions, and by that I mean maybe the top 5 schools in a given field, the difference in classroom experience between a reputable public university and an elite private is minimal. All right, so aside from the education, what about the network? The people you'll rub shoulders with at college? Well, there's certainly some truth to that, but also know that most flagship state schools also have honors colleges where bright, motivated students can build relationships. And plus, if you go to an elite high school or graduate school or workplace, you'll have that network as well. And finally, technology unshackles us, right? There are kids building X and YouTube followers in the thousands and creating their own networks, whether it's through math competitions, hackathons, or extracurricular activities that help them find a community of like-minded individuals. Well, if you put those first two aside, what about just the college experience? And I won't lie, college can be a lot of fun. And maybe an Ivy League experience is more fun than a public university, but I think you could take either side of that argument. In any case, you would have to decide whether you're willing to pay $80,000 a year for that increment in fun. So, according to some researchers, the primary benefit of an elite college is signaling. An elite college on your resume sends a signal to a prospective employer that this person has already made it through a rigorous screening process. And if the admissions department at some fancy school gave their stamp of approval, then this student must be great. That at least has been the theory. But as the admissions criteria for elite colleges has become more nebulous over the past 20 years, grade inflation means that pretty much anyone who gets admitted to one of these schools will graduate with something close to a 4.0 GPA. And if you follow the news, you know that the brands and mystique of many of the higher education institutions are not what they were even 15 or 20 years ago, which means that signaling value has diminished as well. And I'll offer the caveat I provided before, that there are a small handful of schools, or more specifically departments within schools, whose rigor and reputations rise above the rest. But for the most part, it's been shown that after controlling for incoming student quality, career outcomes, lifetime income, etc., are very similar between the most selective schools and reputable public universities. And nowadays, employers are getting smarter. They're all casting wider nets when they recruit. In many cases, micro-credentials, boot camps, portfolios offer alternative paths to earn or demonstrate an education. So I've described this game that high school has become, and it has certain features. It's highly competitive, even zero-sum. The actions required to win may or may not be enjoyable or even worthwhile. Achieving the payoff is highly uncertain, and the value of that payoff is questionable. So let's go back to the question we started with, the question likely in your mind. How do you win this game? In the first half of the 20th century, John von Neumann, John Nash, and others pioneered the formal study of game theory. But actually, rather than looking at their treatment, there's a late 20th century artifact that illustrates this situation even better. This is the 1983 movie War Games, and you can tell I'm a child of the 80s because this is what pops up in my mind when thinking about this topic. In that movie, there's a US military supercomputer AI who's programmed to simulate, predict, and execute a nuclear war. And of course, it predictably runs amok. At the movie's climax, the computer is running some final simulations to optimize its nuclear attack plan, and that's where we join the action.
Learning.
Greetings, Professor Falcon.
Hello, Joshua.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to play. How about a nice game of chess?
All right, so how do you win by not playing? I'll answer that question in the next phase of this talk. And it's really about what drives Telra's unique approach to high school. So if you've looked at other high schools, you know they all claim to offer the best college prep experience. How does Telra stand out? What do we do differently? Like scholars, our elementary school students tackle high school content. Shouldn't our high school students tackle college content? Students at other schools focus on stacking up AP classes in the hopes of converting them to college credit. But instead of that, couldn't we just take college courses? Couldn't we just start college? Well, North Carolina has certain required courses that all high school students must take in order to earn credit for a high school diploma. And dual enrollment courses are college courses that also happen to satisfy those high school diploma requirements. And so if you're savvy about it, you can work with a college to plan out a sequence of dual enrollment courses that satisfy almost all of these high school requirements while also conferring college credit. This is a program called Career and College Promise. It allows qualified high schoolers to take community college courses at CPCC tuition free. Now, historically, only 11th and 12th graders have been allowed to take these courses. But Telra is the first school to begin sending 9th and 10th graders to Central Piedmont to take part in this program. Most of these courses are universally recognized for transfer credit at any public university and many private universities in the state. Outside of the state, each college will have their own policies, but generally they'll examine your transcript and see what the most comparable classes are to give you credit, in a way similar to APs or IB. But on that topic, one question I get asked a lot is how to compare AP and dual enrollment. Based on what I know about Scholars Academy students, AP courses just aren't going to be enough for you. And let me provide a few specific illustrations. So when you look at AP courses, about 35% of US public high school graduates took at least one AP exam in 2022. Each of the 39 AP courses, they may be up to 40 now, but they're around that number, is modeled on a comparable introductory college course in the subject. Now, an introductory course means first year. The outcome, which means possible college credit, hinges on the performance in an end of course exam scored on a scale of 5. Sometimes schools will grant you credit for a course if you earn a 3. Sometimes they may require a 4 or even a 5 before you're allowed that credit. Let's look at dual enrollment on the other hand. Dual enrollment in most community colleges will cover first and second year college coursework. There are hundreds of course offerings across dozens of subjects, 43 in just the art department at CPCC, I checked. That's more courses in just the topic of art than all of the AP courses available from the College Board. And the outcome is based on the grade earned throughout the course. So it's not as much based on a single high stakes exam. So if basic first year college courses are all you're interested in, and that's mostly what most high school students need, or I shouldn't say most, but the top 35% or so, AP meets that criteria pretty well. If you're looking for a more advanced coursework in a core area, or if you want to explore your passions more broadly, I urge you to try dual enrollment. And let me give you some examples. The first example I'm going to share is physics. And the reason is it's the degree I got, so it was near and dear to my heart. All right, so if you take Physics 1 from AP, it's an algebra-based physics course, that will transfer over and give you credit for Physics 114 at, say, our state flagship, UNC Chapel Hill. That's General Physics 1 for students of the life sciences. Now, you might say, I could take the second Physics 2 course, and that also gives you credit for a UNC Chapel Hill course. Or you might think, well, maybe I'll take the calculus-based physics courses, Physics C, Mechanics, and E&M. Those give you credit for the same courses at Chapel Hill. If you wanted to get credit for the more advanced physics courses at Chapel Hill, you would have to take a sequence from Central Piedmont, not their introductory physics sequence, but the Physics 251, 252 sequence, which gets you through Physics 118 and 119 at Chapel Hill. Now that's one example, and lest you think I'm just cherry picking, let's look at math. So here's the example for math. You can take AP Stats, that maps to data models and inference course at Chapel Hill, or you could take Math 152, which is the Central Piedmont statistics course equivalent, or you could take Calculus AB, calculus of one variable, the first semester. Math 271 is an equivalent course. You could take Calculus BC on the AP side. That gives you credit for another semester of the college course. Similarly, there's a second semester course at Central Piedmont, but that's where it ends if you're in AP world. On the dual enrollment side, there's 3 more courses you can take that are conventionally accepted as math credit for, late first year, second year students in most engineering schools or science schools, if you're going to be into a math heavy program. We're talking multivariable calculus, we're talking linear algebra, we're talking differential equations, none of which have an AP equivalent and require some sort of college partnerships in most schools to take advantage of. Let's look at biology. There is an AP biology course which gives you credits for Biology 101 at UNC Chapel Hill. And similarly, there's a biology sequence, Bio 111, 112, which many of our 9th graders are taking this year. That gives you credit for that same course. But that's where the AP world runs out. Those biology courses at Central Piedmont actually give you credit for 3 semesters at Chapel Hill. And if you wanted to go further into zoology, botany, genetics, anatomy and physiology, there's plenty more. And honestly, all right, let's go outside of the STEM field. let's look at psychology. So there is an AP psychology course and a corresponding dual enrollment course. But if that was your thing, if you really wanted to become a psychologist or have psychology be a minor, you could go much further in a dual enrollment environment than you could with AP. That just isn't, that is part of a college experience which most high schools are not really set up to provide. And of course, in drama, this is a contrived example, but if drama is your thing, there is no AP equivalent, but there's of course a host of college courses that one could take if one were really passionate about the theater. So coming back to our comparison of AP versus college courses in the college prep landscape, we don't need to prepare, we're going right into college. Now, again, maybe I denigrate AP too much. It's a wonderful option for many students, but it falls short for the top students who want to go deeper or broader, and Telra provides an option to dive right into college courses in ninth grade instead. Now, some other schools do offer dual enrollment programs, but there are a few problems with their approaches. First, those students generally have to find and take those courses individually, driving to a CPCC campus or taking it online. And that can sometimes work for a particularly motivated student who finds a way to fit that into their schedule, but it's generally not ideal and it kind of defeats the purpose of being in a school. Telra students take most of their college courses together as a cohort, generally live and in person on the college campus, so they can experience learning as part of a community. Cohorts and in person. Now, other schools usually make you wait until 11th grade to take dual enrollment classes, and that doesn't work for our students, and it probably won't work for a lot of scholar students. Many of those students are probably ready for advanced coursework now, so we found a way for Telra students to begin dual enrollment as early as 9th grade. And the problem is if you wait to start dual enrollment until later in high school, you might be able to find one or two interesting courses, but you won't have the prerequisites to take many of the advanced offerings, and you won't have enough credits to earn an associate's degree. Many of our students are earning associate's degrees, have enough credits to earn their first associate degree this spring. Literally in the spring of their 10th grade year, they're earning their first college degree. So rather than taking classes just to play a resume game, they can actually take the classes that are aligned to a degree, their associate's degree or their future bachelor's degree. And by the time they finish their 4 years of high school at Telra, they will likely have taken enough coursework to not only satisfy the first 2 or more years of degree requirements for any public university in the state of North Carolina, they'll have gone a long way towards finding their passions and knowing what they really want to do with their life. Better to get that figured out now. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, there's no cost for these dual enrollment courses between the state subsidy and what Telra as a school will pay for. There's no cost for books, no fees, no tuition. It's covered. That means half of a college degree can be yours for free for students that go through our program. So what happens after high school? Now it's up to you. Maybe you want to take your associate's degree and get some work experience. Maybe you still have that dream of going to MIT or Stanford or Caltech and want to apply for that elite college. Well, a few points on that front. In your application, you'd be able to show that you've taken and succeeded in real college coursework, that you've navigated college registrations, shown the organization and executive function and responsibility needed to work on a college schedule, turn in assignments when you don't have a teacher holding your hand every day. And you would have built relationships with college faculty, which can also be great for recommendation letters. Another interesting thing is that your application profile will look unique. One of the challenges in attending most other strong high schools is that top students all end up looking very similar. Imagine being an admission officer and seeing 50 students from the same high school that all take the same set of 8 to 12 AP courses and achieve solid test scores. At Telra, you have so many more ways to craft a unique profile. Every associate degree is different, and more importantly, every student's high school pathway after their associates is an opportunity to build a compelling story with college-level rigor. And once you get to these schools, you'll be better positioned to place out of more introductory classes. And when you're a first-year student taking courses with second or third-year students, you start to get a reputation. When scholarships and research and internship opportunities come up, faculty start putting you on the short list automatically. Some of you might decide, I can't pass up the opportunity to transfer these credits to UNC Chapel Hill, NC State, UNC Charlotte, or another college to finish up a bachelor's degree in 2 years with little or no debt. Then you're 20 years old, holding a bachelor's degree, and the world is yours. You could get started on a career to earn some money, get a second bachelor's, continue to earn a master's degree before others your age have completed college. Maybe you take a year off and travel Europe or start a company, who knows? And reflecting back on our earlier discussion of signaling, I can tell you as an employer, a resume from someone who's earned a bachelor's degree at age 20 is a pretty strong signal of someone exceptional. So now let's get back to talk about some possible 9th grade coursework. Course sequencing, of course, varies for each student. It depends on the credits they come in with, but there's a little bit of background that's important for everyone to know. There are different pathways available to students in a dual enrollment program. There's something called a college transfer pathway and a career and technical education pathway. Now, the differences between these, they have slightly different qualifications for 9th and 10th graders. To get on the college transfer pathway, you have certain thresholds you need to meet on a pre-ACT test or another test called RISE that Central Piedmont uses. You can also qualify for the career and technical education pathway in a somewhat more straightforward way by passing Math 1 with a grade of at least a C and a 3 on the EOC, and getting at least a 3 in the 8th grade reading EOG. So most students from Scholars will at least qualify for the CTE pathways, but I believe many will also qualify for the college transfer pathway right away. Even if you don't qualify right away in the first semester, you'll have many opportunities throughout the first couple of years to qualify for those. Now, a little bit more about those pathways, right? So you have to select and complete the pathway. A pathway is a particular trajectory. You may pick arts or science. Those are the most popular options for the college transfer, but there's 6 other options, and that's about 10 courses that's a limited menu that you would have to choose and complete before being able to take other courses towards an associate's degree. In a similar way, there are around 18 different pathways on the CTE side, or the career side. Most students just choose to start on the business pathway, and that's another 4 to 6 courses that you complete from a limited menu before you can work on something further. The next step after completing that pathway is the associate degree. So the corresponding associate degree courses are unlocked. You can start to take them. You need around 10 more courses. So 10 in the pathway, another 10 or so post-pathway, 20 courses overall to complete an associate degree, and a similar number for the associate's degree on the career side. Now, what happens after that? The associate's degree is not the end of the road. If you have certain additional courses that would be beneficial towards your eventual 4-year degree, you can justify taking additional courses at the community college. Most of those courses on the college transfer pathway are credits that would be transferable to a 4-year institution. In general, most of the courses on the CTE side, the career side, are not transferable to a 4-year college because they're designed for entering the workforce. But there are exceptions. Examples of the career side are, aside from business, biomedical technology, artificial intelligence, programming, mechatronics, nursing, lots of things that you might find could be nice, useful complements to a college transfer pathway. For example, something in the biomedical side might be a great addition to someone who's looking to go into medicine. So to recap, there are 3 categories of courses that are offered at Telra in our high school. There's the college transfer pathway courses, the career and technical pathway courses, and what we call honors courses. These are core high school courses that are not part of the dual enrollment program. They're just high school courses. So students can qualify for 1, 2, or all 3 categories at the start of 9th grade. And as they progress, they start unlocking either additional categories and more courses within those categories. Most student schedules include a mix of all 3 types of courses. All right, now I'm going to give you a sample course schedule for a student that might be coming from Scholars. So this is an assumption. of someone who is coming from Scholars to Telra and is qualifying to start the college transfer pathway right away at the beginning of ninth grade. Now, if we assume that the student has taken English 1 prior to ninth grade, they may start in the fall semester of ninth grade with a couple of college courses. These are basically freshman composition type courses, and then move into a literature course in the spring semester. On the history side, we have to take a look to see if there are any particular history credits that need to be met. If one needs the World History High School credit, you can also satisfy that with the sequence of World Civilizations 1 and 2 courses shown here that are college courses. On the science side, again, assuming one has the biology credit, you might wait and take a geology earth science college course in the spring. On math, again, for this particular example, I've assumed a student who has completed Math 3. They probably would start Telra Math 10, which is a pre-calculus course. They could be co-enrolled in a dual enrollment pre-calculus course with Central Piedmont. And that student may take a few other courses. College Transfer Success is a one-credit course that helps students get acclimated to the college environment. Introduction to Computers is a basic introduction to computers, as the title says. PE keeps our kids moving. We do recommend microeconomics as a class in the first 3 semesters of the student's career, and then also Act with Agency is a special course that we've developed that helps students through a mix of exercises, theater, role plays. It helps our students become better public speakers and more able to drive outcomes in their own life. So the gray shading here, if it wasn't clear, if you didn't read the footnote, are courses that would convey college credit. Now, this is just one example. Every student's course schedule may look different depending on the sorts of credits they come in with and what they qualify for in terms of an introductory math course. And again, this is why the placement tests are extremely important. Let's talk about extracurriculars for a moment. You need to come into a school like ours with eyes open. We are never going to be a 3,000 student high school, so our range of clubs and sports will be narrower than what you could get at the largest public or private schools. However, we want to target and nurture the kinds of extracurriculars that this unique community values. And I can tell you some of the things that we've already started or we've been talking about. On the STEM side, we're already active in math and robotics competitions. We have an active DECA club for those interested in business and arts and humanities. There's opportunities to get involved in drama, newspaper, and yearbook. Athletics, luckily we'll have a gym that can support basketball, pickleball, volleyball. And the Mecklenburg County Recreational Complex is really just not too far down the road. So we can use that for things like soccer, and we have a little grassy field in front of the school as well. Really, the sky is the limit here because it's about bringing your ideas, an opportunity with a relatively young school to display your leadership. And it just depends on parent interest and student interest. The other thing worth mentioning is that Telra students involved in dual enrollment have access to all CPCC student clubs and events, and our students definitely take advantage of that. They had all kinds of fun things happening this week for finals, and our students got way more free food than they bargained for and treats. So what I hope you have learned from this is that we're not trying to offer just another good high school option that helps you play this strange game that I talked about before. We're trying to solve the coupled problem of high school and higher education for advanced learners. We're building a different kind of high school that can produce high agency learners that chart their own path to success. So we're not in for this strange game. And this is a path that doesn't rely on years of artificial resume building. It's a path that doesn't rely on high stress and high stakes AP testing. This is a path that doesn't rely on getting past a distant impersonal gatekeeper in a low probability college lottery. And this is a path that reduces the cost, reduces the time, and improves the ROI of higher education by an order of magnitude. This is the path for families who see the game and recognize that the only winning move is not to play. This is Telra High School, and I'm happy to answer questions. So if anyone has questions, feel free to unmute yourself.
question. My name is Nat. Thank you for the presentation. When you mentioned the pre-ACT, when is that something that would have to be done then in January? Is that the exam you were referring to as like the placement exam, or is that something else?
So we have a sequence of placement exams. What we would probably do is the first set of exams, if you were to come in, the first time you'd come to do placement testing with us, you'd probably do the English and the math placement exam. And those are local, at least the math one is local. And then after that, we would ask you to come back again for another visit to do the pre-ACT test. So the earlier you can get started, I think we have talked about our first date for pre-ACT. I don't remember when that is. It's probably later in January or early in February. But again, for high school students, there's a little bit more exams than are required for most students just because we have to do that. You're not only qualifying for Telra classes, you're also qualifying for Central Piedmont classes. So yes, there's two mornings that we would ask you to spend with us to get that done.
The first date we're looking at for pre-ACT is February 1st. Hi, everyone. My name is Elisha Rierich. I am the K-8 principal here at Telra. Just wanted to put that date on your calendars in case you are interested.
Question for 9th through 12. Well, I guess it's not through 12 yet, but for the high school, how many students are currently attending per grade?
Right now we have about 20 students per grade, and that's going to grow next year. The class behind them, our 8th graders currently have 60 students. So we may get, who knows, right? It could be about 40 or something next year. And the year after that, our current seventh grade class has almost 80 students. So it'll keep going up. So we'll get to that point of, like I mentioned at the beginning, probably about 50 to 75 per grade level. It's never going to be, 500 or 800 per grade level like you see in some high schools. We want to try and keep it a relatively intimate school, like Scholars has been, and like the other grades at Telra.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? You can also type them in the chat if you prefer to ask that way. Well, in the meantime, I'll just say you can visit telra.org, telra.org. You'll find a link on our website to apply if you're so interested. Or you can always email if you have other questions that occur to you after this meeting, email applications@telra.org, and we'll be happy to help. All right, looks like there aren't any questions from the group. So
Thank you.
Oh.
Maybe just one question here. So you
Sure.
were sorry, this is Karlagman. So my son is a current 8th grader at Scholars. So I have a question regarding logistics. You mentioned that the students will be walking back and forth between Telra and CPCC. My question is related to logistics. Is there a, how do you say that, a safe walkable path for them from Telra to CPCC, or they would have to go through the road?
That's a good question. So I've walked that path before. You can walk on the grass. So there's a sidewalk during part of it. And then where there's not a sidewalk, there's really large kind of empty lots that you can walk on the grass if you like. The road isn't very busy. So I didn't find it dangerous, but we understand that in case somebody does, we plan to have a shuttle bus that's running back and forth every hour. So you don't have to walk, and if the weather's bad and you prefer not to walk, you don't need to. Our bus will be going back and forth so students can just hop on, before or after the core classes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I can imagine a lot of students wanting to bring a bike and leave it at school and just bike back and forth. It'll be a really short bike ride, and that gives them more freedom to kind of come and go when they want to.
Hey, I have a question regarding the credits. So for the courses the students take at CPCC, are those courses honored or given credits outside of North Carolina as well?
So every school is different in that regard. I know that many of those courses are definitely recognized out of state, but because there's no universal transfer agreement that exists between colleges across the country or the world. So you would present your transcript to the receiving institution, and they may ask, in some cases, they may ask for a syllabus from the course, and then they'll decide what credits to give you. But the fact that North Carolina is a pretty large and recognized university system gives you pretty good chances that they'll be honored in most schools. So, for example, if you went to like Georgia Tech or something like that, right, I think you'd find a lot of courses that are transferred, but it's not required by law, right? In state, it is required by law. Out of state, everyone is up. Each school can decide on their own, so there's no guarantees. So you'd be well advised to, if you do have your mind set on a particular school, you can kind of research their transfer credit acceptance policies.
Okay. And I have one more question. You said the students have to take a test to be qualified for the CCP or CTE, right? CTP. So in that case, how does it work? Like, let's say they are not qualified, like, do they take a combination of courses, or do they all have the option of just taking the required courses at Telra itself, or do you offer an equivalent AP for those students?
So our students would take, there was 3 categories of courses, right? So students are going to qualify in, generally, if a student qualifies for college transfer, they'll also qualify for the career pathway and the honors pathway. In some cases, you have students that only qualify for career and honors. And then in some cases, if they haven't qualified for either of these categories, they may only qualify for honors courses. So we have course selections for students who are just doing high school courses. But long term, eventually, all students will get onto some dual enrollment pathway, even if they don't make it the very first semester of their freshman year. They'll get there eventually.
Okay, thank you.
But the one part of your question was, do we offer AP? No, we don't do AP. We're all in on dual enrollment, and we think it would be confusing to both families and to college admissions officers if we tried to do both, because students could not effectively do both in a major way. If they were really dual enrollment students, they would only be able to dabble with AP or vice versa. And it's best to show that you are truly committed to one sort of program to see it through.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions popping into folks' heads? All right, I'll start saying thank you once again and appreciate your time this evening. And please reach out if you have questions for any of us. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Yeah.